I am Vero, and you're watching Modern Immigrant. Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of Modern Immigrant. Every Monday, we're bringing new episodes with new stories of immigration that are gonna inspire you and they're gonna be right there with you during this journey. So, today, Yeri is with us, and I'm really, really excited that I had the opportunity to meet her and to listen to her wonderful story. You need to pay attention because we're gonna be talking about so many amazing things, from the identity of your name and how sometimes when you become an immigrant, you have to kind of like adapt to the culture, you have to change your name, you have to pretty much become someone that maybe you're not that person. And we talk about Yeri's experience at the Air Force. Yes, she went to the Air Force and had an amazing time asking her how did she end up going there and how was that experience. And you're gonna love it. It's really, really wonderful. I admire her and so much resilience, so much growth. Yeri also does an amazing work with skill connections, helping others, helping youth to have a better future. We're going to talk about those stereotypes that are around Hispanics or Latinos in terms of education. And Yeri also teaches at a community college for the citizen test to become a citizen in the United States. So I thought that was a wonderful kind of take away from the interview. I was able to ask her a few questions and even get a very, very amazing tip if you ever have to take that test. So I will leave you with Yeri and this wonderful interview. Again, thank you for being here. Do not forget to subscribe. You can do it right now. You're gonna see a little reminder here. If you're watching us on YouTube and if you're listening, also subscribe in any of the platforms. That way, you get a reminder every time we have a new episode. We also have an Instagram at Modern Immigrant. We're always pretty active, showing information about each of the guests, sharing a little bit about my own journey, and just resources for immigration. So thank you for being here and enjoy. Yerania, welcome one more time to Modern Immigrant. This is take two, I would say. I'm so happy that you're here with us today, and I can't wait to hear more from your journey. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, this is exciting. And I would love to start by hearing, when did your immigration journey start? Because I think that's always like a great opening question. And I know that we're going to be asking a lot more, but I want the audience to get a sense on, yeah, when did that journey begin?
Yes, it's interesting that you asked this question and just reflecting, it has been literally 30 years ago.
Wow,
And
amazing.
time, I'm really aging myself, but I feel that time has passed so fast, and people tell you that all the time, especially when you're a parent. They always say, you'll blink and they'll grow up. I can't believe it's been 30 years. I was 12 years old, so you
Hmm.
guys can do the math for my birthday.
We're
And
not. We're
um,
not
and
going to do
actually,
the math.
it's actually this month is a birthday, so that's great. But as a 12-year-old, I left Mexico with my mom and dad and a brother and a sister to come to Northern California.
Wow.
So that's how it all got started. Yes.
How can you explain to us your life change from the life you used to have to what was happening when you move?
Definitely. Yeah, it was definitely a tough transition.
Mm,
So I'll just go back into history a little bit. So in the 50s, I'm really passionate about talking about los braceros, or the bracero program for
yeah.
farm laborers, all kinds of laborers, but specifically agricultural laborers.
Mm,
So that's how my family came to America with my grandfather, my maternal grandfather.
mm,
So he would come as a seasonal worker every year and go back to Mexico, back and forth. So he brought his daughters, which was one of them was my mom,
okay.
and that's how she started her legal process back then. So when hard times hit Mexico, and my parents were both professionals. My mom was an accountant, my dad was a banker. We lived in middle class Mexico. I went to an all-girl Catholic
Mm.
private school, the
Yeah.
same school that my mother and my aunt had attended.
Wow.
So I was really sheltered, I would say. I in Mexico's, and I think a lot of countries in South America, it's traditional that you have help around the house. Where I grew up with all kinds of ladies coming in and out of my house,
Yeah.
to helping with laundry and cooking and the whole thing. And then when we came to the U.S., it was supposed to be that my dad came to work and would send money back to Mexico to help us out with the financial issues that they were facing. But he came in March, and my mother by June, she couldn't stand being without him.
Wow.
So, so
Yes.
they kind of figured things out, and they said, "Well, I think there's an opportunity for us as a family to be together in Northern California." And we landed in a little town called Williams, California, north of Sacramento,
Wow.
and that was a refugee camp
Mm.
for laborers. And it was a row of trailers, and in the trailers was the basic necessities: a bathroom and a little kitchen, and hospital beds.
Are
So
you?
we,
Wow.
yeah, if you can imagine the thick metal hospital beds that you would see in a mental institution or in many hospitals, in the 50s.
Yeah.
This was in the early 90s, but that's what we came from. We came, like I said, from middle class
Mm.
in Mexico to what we call the El Campito, to live in Williams, California, El Campito. It was
Wow.
definitely an adjustment for our
I
family.
Right. And I'm really glad that you described to us how was life for you back home, because I think that's something that we never actually consider. We're like, oh, you moved to the USA or you moved to a new country because you're looking for better opportunities. And some people assume that your opportunities back home weren't good. And sometimes we actually move abroad and we're kind of going backwards in a way, on the lifestyle that we used to have, right? So I think
Right.
it's a very a special thing to talk and to understand that they were just different opportunities back home from the ones that you were about to face here.
Yeah, definitely. We had a home, a large home, and it was a colonial home. So
Mm.
I'm from Zacatecas. It was a colonial, so it was colonized by Spaniards. So there's a whole lot of architecture and culture in that city. So our house was part of the Mexican Revolution, and it was just a beautiful home. And we came to El Campito,
Wow,
over just the blink of an eye. And as a
so
12-year
different.
old, I had no control or no say. We were just doing what our parents
Yeah.
wanting, what they thought was best for us.
Yes.
So that was definitely a shock. We didn't become homeowners. I mean, in my entire life after that, I didn't become a homeowner until I was married
Mm.
and late into my 20s.
Mm.
So we from that period on, we were renters. We lived in apartments, and
Yeah.
we eventually left El Campito. But it was just such a heartbreak in a
Mm.
way, because you come from that level of ownership to.
Mm.
I mean, I see the sadness in my parents' eyes,
Yeah.
that they were that they had lost so much in the name of progress.
Yeah. So what was exactly like, if things were going well in a way in Mexico, and you have some sort of help at home and you had a beautiful home, what do you think that was the reason why your parents felt that they weren't willing to stay in Mexico? Like, was there like a specific opportunity that they had here in the US that they wanted to kind of try it out, or it was just, yeah, just kind of like, we'll see what happens?
I think it's a combination of things.
Mm.
I think my parents had poor financial choices, or they didn't make
Okay.
the most smart or informed financial choices. I joke, but I can talk about this later. But that was part of it. I think another part is that there, and particularly to Mexico and my region, there's so much allure with people that come from America back to visit. They come with wealth.
Yeah.
I was just telling my citizenship students the other day, I remember they would bring the JCPenney catalog, and that
Hmm.
was a big deal. I mean, we would go
Yeah.
through it and look at all the American things. So I think there was a sense of we've made some poor financial choices. The Mexican market had just crashed. There was a
Okay.
lot of pressure. There were a lot of debt. There was just a lot of different things. And I think the fact that my mom had a path to legal, she was a resident alien, it was easy for
Yes.
them to say, let's go after another opportunity because our life may be better at that point.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
can really relate to that story because I feel like I came to this country, also having a place back home and having opportunities, but I grew up listening to that as well and seeing, right? Like people that go to the US and they come back and they have all these fancy clothes. And I don't know, it's just like this
Mhm.
idea that you're going to arrive and then things are just going to be magically easy and it's
Yeah.
really not like that, and we're gonna get into that soon. But you were 12 years old, so how was that like? I know we talk about school and how hard was that for you, so I would love for you to just share if you can remember that Yerania at 12 years old arriving to a new country. How was that?
Yeah, definitely. I think about that often. I have two kids, one that is graduating high school this year and another one that just went into high school. So I see myself in them. So that's why it was hard for me to reflect that it's been so long because that has been probably one of the hardest things I've gone through as a person. And,
100%.
I think I'm grateful that I went through it, but it was definitely difficult. So if you can just imagine a sheltered 12-year-old female that never been in her entire life, had never sat next to a boy outside of maybe a family member or a really close family friend, because I was raised with 60 females in my class at this Catholic school. So here I am in Northern California in this school mixed with boys and girls, and they're we're all in middle school at this point. So hormones are going crazy and I had never experienced that. And then if you mentioned the language, I mean, I spoke a little bit of English just because of my school, but it was basic words like window and apple. So I probably cried so many tears back
Oh,
then that I ran out of tears because it was a difficult transition. It
yeah.
was just being next to boys, and then the cultural shift too.
Mm,
It was Hispanic females or Latinas were Americanized, many of them.
mm.
Um, Many of them identify themselves, in Northern California. Back then, it was really typical to be a blood or a crip, the red and the blue sort of kind of gang thing. And
Wow.
either you wore that color or you didn't. I was immediately classified as a fresa,
Yeah.
which I had never been classified like that.
Mm.
But now, understanding all of that, that was definitely something. So it was horrible. I mean, I got into my first physical fight, which was a shock. But this particular
Wow.
female, I know her name. I remember her would pick on me so much, and she was a Latina, and it was just she was so miserable to me. And one day, I would cry. We talked to the principal. I was just being bullied, and my dad just said one day, "Yerania, like you're gonna have to fight. This is gonna you're gonna have to do this. And if you don't, they felt helpless,
Mm.
and they said, and if you don't, you're going to be in trouble because we're tired of hearing you be so upset about this. Like you're going to have to stand up for yourself and tell her
Yeah.
something." So I did, and I was suspended for 3 days. And we
Wow.
met in the principal's office, and the principal wasn't upset because he knew the background, he knew the story, and there was only so much an administrator could do. And
Yeah.
my mom and dad took me out to dinner to celebrate.
That's so good. I love this story. That deserves a celebration. It's like an initiation kind of thing. Like, yes.
Yeah, they're just like, you're gonna have to tell
Yeah.
her that it's not okay for her to treat you this way. I mean,
Mm.
she would poke me with a pencil. She would
Wow.
call me names. It was constant. And
Mm.
I was so sheltered that I wasn't empowered to really voice
Yeah.
my anger in any other way. So I was encouraged to do that. That was pretty sad, but it happened.
It's interesting though, because I feel like that's the process. I mean, at your age, that was your process of finding that identity and kind of like adapting to how things work in this country, right? Like if you're an adult, maybe it will look a little different. Like maybe in the US you need to be a little more direct and a little more specific about things. But for you as at that age, it was like, okay, this is a completely new I don't know the rules in this school, so I can only imagine. And you weren't at home, you were in a new country, new language, like so much.
Yeah, yeah, it was. So I remember. I mean, I remember a 12-year-old Yerania like yesterday. That's why it's so hard for me to believe it's been so long.
Yes, it is. And I know that I want to talk about this because we're talking about school. And how do you feel? I want to know, like back then, because I know things have changed in the US in terms of how people receive immigration. But I wonder, how do you feel in that school as an immigrant Latina coming from Mexico? Do you feel like the school supported you, provide the help that you needed? How was that experience?
I'm going to go back and forth a little bit here, but yeah, so I think the Northern California schools had to react and be ready for immigrant families because
Okay.
that's what we were. We were feeding America just like they are now. That's what the role was. So I think that those particular schools had to do that. I'm not sure that it was culturally sensitive if we
Mm,
would want it to be, but they were definitely, empowering us to learn English and
yeah.
acclimate. And I felt that Northern Nevada schools were more united.
Mm,
There was more integration, I would say, because after I lived in Northern California, my dad decided, he's a man that's always looking for opportunity. I mean, my dad is an amazing man, and he said, we lived in a town. After Williams, we moved to Arbuckle, which was only about 20 minutes away. And he said, this town is too small. There's not enough an opportunity for you guys in terms of universities and things of that nature. So, long story short, we ended up in Nevada, in northern Nevada. This was for 3 years after we migrated.
okay.
So, we came to the capital city of Carson City, Nevada. And that to me is um, a different climate.
Mm,
Back then, there were not many Hispanics. It was very Anglo based as a capital and not a whole lot of Latino representation. So I came to this school in 1992, and I'm just going to go ahead. I don't know if I'm going ahead too much, but
you're good.
when I came in to register, I was a sophomore in high school, and my counselor at this high school, Carson High School, said, "Your name is so much. Like it is so complicated. I don't think our students and our staff are really going to be able to pronounce your name, and it's going to be miserable for you." And at that point, now that you know where I came from, where I was being bullied and trying to acclimate even with the same Latinas and just learning the language, I literally was like, look, this is a fresh start for me in America after living in California. Whatever you say, I will do.
Mm,
So he said to me, why don't we shorten your name and we name you Yeti? Now, my mom and dad always call me Yerania or Yeri in short, and they spell it Yeri, Yeri, Yeti,
yes.
like it sounds in
Mm-hmm.
Spanish. Well, this counselor said, that's too hard. People are going to call you Yeri, and it's just going to be, and knowing your background is not going to be good. So we are going to name you Yeti, Yette.
Like the
And I
brand.
think,
There's a brand
yeah,
now
like the
that's
brand, exactly. Instead of the I at the end, it's an E.
yeah.
So for the last 27 years or so, I've been, I use my name Yerania as a legal name, but for the most part, everything was Yeti, Yette.
Wow.
Not until this summer where I had this awakening, and I guess we'll get to that, where I thought, I need to be me. Like,
No,
what am
I
I doing?
this is when we're gonna talk about it. Like this is just amazing. Because what's so I think what's really powerful is that back then, what you wanted was to fit in, right? Like you were like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done about being the different one. I'm done about, dealing with this bullying situation. And it sounded like, and I get it. It's part of the assimilation, right? You were like, this is it. I'm ready to change who I am in a way. to fit this culture, right?
Yeah.
um and I'm sure that back then at that age it was almost impossible to look ahead, right? And to that process that you're living right now, which I would love to kind of ask you, what do you think it made you feel that you were done with Yeri and that you wanted to, embrace your name? What changed?
Well, I think there's a big movement for us Latinas right now. So I feel that for the majority of my 20s and my 30s, I was so sheltered. I sort of sheltered myself professionally and personally, where, I was just really worried about stabilizing my family financially, including my parents. They ended up buying a home, all kinds of different things,
Yeah.
where I just was forging forward without really looking at like really who I was.
Mm.
And I had an opportunity to pause professionally, and that's a whole story that ties back to Carson, but we can go over that later.
Yeah.
And in that pause, I spent some time, and that's how I connected with you and just different people. And I see this movement about being authentic and about really embracing who we are, and we're here to stay. There's like really claiming
Mm.
why we are here in
Yeah.
a way. And I thought that's so I actually follow another podcaster, and she had made this whole thing about her name. Odali's Jasmine is her name.
Wow.
And I thought, and she's younger. I mean, she's way younger than I am. And I thought, wow, like that, you know, why can I not do that? Like, this is awful that I've been hiding behind this Yeti to try to fit in. And now, I'm in my 40s. Like, no. And that's really what did it. I think there's so much more support for us
Yes.
Latinas.
Yes.
I think we are really embracing each other and encouraging each other in different ways that I don't think really happened before, because we were so worried with like, survival and adjusting and all kinds of different things that we didn't have time to, or at least I didn't pay attention to that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that as well, because I have also felt that way. I felt like in the past I wasn't identifying as Latina in such a proud way as I do now. And I think it's been exactly the same, like seeing the what's happening, right? Like seeing the movement, seeing the social media, like as much as sometimes we talk terrible about social media, there's also something good going on, right? For
Mm-hmm.
us, for other minorities. Um, and I feel like it's never too late. This is the time, like, and it's gonna be different for everybody, right? Like to take that time to really accept. I think as immigrants, we try to adapt at the beginning, we try to survive in a way, right? So it's kind of hard to find who you are when you're like, I don't know, what am I even doing here, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. And I guess I'll move forward to my story. I ended up working for the Carson City School District
Yeah.
that really baptized me as a Yeti, with the TT. And and that was when I came to school here. That was 1992, and I started working for the school district in 2018.
Wow.
And walking through those hallways and visiting the counselors' offices that I had visited as a student, I was literally shocked
Mm.
because there hasn't been a lot of change. It,
Wow.
it has it has changed in terms of diversity.
Yeah.
47% of the school is Hispanic or Latinos, but the culture within the school has not embraced those numbers.
Mm.
There hasn't been any. There isn't a whole lot of cultural diversity that's embraced as a whole. There's pockets within it, but the
Yes.
school itself hasn't really said we're here to celebrate this growing group of students. So that was a little bit of a shock to me
Yeah.
as an employee there. And my employment there didn't work out for many reasons. One of the reasons was because I was labeled as a brown staff person.
Mm.
So they said, so I just wasn't valued. I didn't feel like I was valued. So
Mm.
in looking at that and really thinking about what's going on in our world in terms of how much we're growing, how
Mm.
many of us are, blended into the American. I mean, I married, into a different culture. I mean, all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
I thought there is no time like now to really be authentic to who we are, so we can empower our young students that are coming up, so they can feel like they the change is needed.
Yes, 100%. And I want to kind of go back to something you mentioned because I feel it's something I have never explored in the podcast, which is you said that they put you in like this box of brown, right? You are a brown person. And I want to know, how did that make you feel, or how does that even mean to be a brown person? Because does that change the way people treat you? I just want to explore that a little more.
Definitely. It changed the way people treated me from the beginning. So when I talk about the population of this district, I just want to make sure that I also say that it doesn't reflect the administration. So it's like 47% Latinos, and the administration, the leadership is all Anglo. There's not a whole lot of diversity.
Yeah.
So when I was selected for this role, I was excited because I thought, okay, so I'm a minority, I'm a female, you know, I'm a veteran. There's so much I can offer, and I was really in a role where I was going to grow or help students connect with opportunities after high school. So I thought it was just a perfect fit. And when I came into to work, one of the counselors actually said to me, I'm so excited you're here. We are so behind with filing that I'm just so excited to have some help. And I was a little shocked. I thought, well, what do you mean? Like, not that I cannot file. Obviously, if I'm part of a team and we need to do that, that's fine. But that wasn't my role. I was appointed to roll out a program to help students connect with opportunities for after high school, not for filing, right? So it wasn't below me. I just want to be clear on that. It was just interesting that when she introduced herself to me, that's how she viewed me. And that was sort of the beginning of this box creation, if you will. The administrators were, many of them were not inclusive. They would leave me out of meetings. And when I ended up meeting with the HR director just to figure out if this was if what was going on with it, he said to me, well, Yeri, you're a brown one. Like, it's going to be hard for you to break through them. You're brown. And so this was the second time this individual had mentioned that to me. And the first time I sort of let it go. I thought, that's not a big deal. You know, he's just being insensitive. The second time I came home and I told my husband, I was like, this is so weird. Like, I've been feeling like I don't fit in. You know, that's been from the beginning, that I haven't been welcome. And now, like, he's confirmed it. And my husband was like, are you kidding me? Are you not seeing what's happening to you? Like, why are you not making it, like, this is, and I'm a pretty aggressive person when I can be. And he's like, you're so calm about it. Like, come on, this isn't you.
That's the Latina inside ourselves.
Yeah, but I was so shocked that I didn't want to believe it. Honestly, because it had never happened to me. I served in the Air Force for 5 years. As a young, I was a 19-year-old female. And I never saw that in the Air Force. I, have worked in public and the private sector, and never was I ever considered, less talented because of my race, ever.
Yeah.
Until I got into a K-12 situation.
What's crazy what's just so crazy is that this person is telling you, like, kind of like justifying why they were being so hard on you. It was kind of like saying, well, you need to understand, right? Like, no, they need to understand. Like, they need to educate themselves and understand that those stereotypes and those implicit bias that they probably had were completely wrong. So I feel like it's the system, right? Sometimes it just doesn't work the way it should, and it's not supporting us as Latinas. So I think, like, that's what the power that we are kind of creating. Like, I don't know where I heard it today, but it was kind of like, we have to make room for ourselves, like, literally. Like, we sometimes have to be the one saying, yes, I'm gonna be sitting in that table, like, don't wait for that kind of invitation, because it might not never come, right? So I think it's really important.
Right.
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened to me. And I'm so passionate about this. So I can talk a little bit more about it. But so anyway, I ended up resigning, and I'm trying to build my own thing where I connect with those youth, those
Yes.
individuals that really need those connections. But so I still live in the same town. My kids go to the same school district, and I made a lot of connections while I worked there. I worked there for almost 2 years, and I was just picking up my daughter, and this seriously just happened to me this Friday. And I'm like seeking out advice and help. This is why I'm going to mention it. I
Hmm.
was picking up my daughter, who's a freshman at the same school, and then a teacher there that had collaborated with me a whole lot. And I had been, she was totally open to having me. She, she didn't classify me as a brown one, although she did rely on me to talk about the Bracero program. So she really wanted to create more a cultural
Divert, like.
the training or education for the students. So she saw me in the parking lot, and she came by and she says, Yeri, I'm so glad you're here. I've been wanting to get a hold of you. So let's talk. And I said, okay, well, let's chat. And she said, I'm really worried because right now with online learning, we have a large number of students are failing.
Hmm.
And mind you, this is October 17th when we met, or 16th. And the kids have started school since August 20th or so, or something along those lines. So we're well into the first semester. So she was worried about the failing rates, and I said, well, that is concerning. I mean, it's been hard for the kids to adjust to online learning. And she said, yeah, but the hardest part for me is the majority of those students are Hispanic.
Mm.
And I thought, oh, well, yeah, thanks for telling me, because that's sort of my mission now, to try to connect parents and students and figure those things out. And I said, why do you think that is?
Mm.
And she said, well, Yeti, we know that Hispanic families don't value education. And I was so shocked.
Like, how can someone say that? Oh my goodness, you're gonna get me mad too.
No, I know, right? So I sat on it for all day Friday. And then finally, I have a little small channel on Instagram, small community, and on Facebook
that I want to talk about. Please.
And I recorded, and I just said, listen to me. This is what I've just heard from this local school district. I need perspective. Like, why is this happening? And one of my friends, who happens to be a Carson City individual, but she has moved on and she's in another state, responded, and she said, let me tell you something. First and foremost, why would that teacher use Hispanic this whole time and not Latinos? Like, that in itself is an issue.
Yeah, I was recently talking about the difference in my account too. Yes.
Yeah, so I thought, well, I think we have a lot of work to do in this little sleepy town. And I'm just wondering, how, where else is this happening? I think our political climate has really divided a whole lot of people anyway. So there's a lot of work to be done. And it's just interesting that the problem that I face as a professional in this group is extending to students, and now they're feeling the effect, and they're sort of responding by not succeeding, which that's not the way we want to go. We value education. I know our parents would work 2, 3, 4 jobs for us to continue with school. That is not the norm.
I don't think that any family will risk their lives, the jobs they had, the life they had in a country where they have some sort of security, to come to a different country, not because they value education, not because they value a better future. Like, I feel like if anything, it's the opposite. It seems like Latinos value education even more because we are ready to do whatever we have to do and put ourselves in really awkward situations and places in order to be better, right? So I'm really thankful that we can talk about this and that you're talking about something that recently happened, because it just, I mean, hopefully, like the kind of like the change that we're experiencing as Latinas, hopefully something that it's gonna become bigger and bigger and bigger in the next few years for future generations to, hopefully they don't have to deal with this much BS as we are. Seriously.
Yeah, I just wonder, so I work with kids of all ethnicities, like it doesn't matter. And I was just working with an Anglo student Thursday, right before this happened, and and I was talking to him about career opportunities and things, life after high school, and he said, "I'm just tired of school. Like I don't want to go to any. I don't want to pursue higher education." And I was asking him, I said, "Why?" And he said to me, "I don't think it's just not relevant to me." That's what he said. So I'm wondering, what's the cause for our students to feel this way, right? Because they're this teacher is literally concerned. Like, I think, she's a good person, she means
Yeah.
well, she's just not sensitive to our terminology, but that's fine. She was reaching out for help. So there's clearly something going on that is great, that's more. But I believe, like, for me, you're a 47% Latino population, and there's no Spanish music at this school. So, like, just that simple thing to me is like, I don't feel like I belong, or I can, like, I have to acclimate to something else. Or why can't we just embrace all of it and celebrate our differences? And, because I think some schools in Northern California have it figured out. I mean, some of those schools have mariachi bands,
Yeah.
where the students feel relevant.
Yeah, and where it's cool
So,
as a teenager to be part of this group, right? Where even others
right.
that might not be Hispanic or might not be Latino say, "Oh, I also want to be part of that," right? Like, because that's the whole reason, right? Like, that we can all kind of live with each other and accept each other, and
Right.
as you said, celebrate differences. I think that's just such a beautiful sentence, right? When do we stop celebrating differences? When do we stop thinking that if you're different, that's bad, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
I hope to get down to it. So if anybody listening to this has perspective, I would welcome it. I don't want my little town to have a high number of students that do not graduate high school or fail out, and affect, our overall economy, not for a personal gain, but just for themselves, right? Because we know how important a high school diploma is.
yeah.
So I wouldn't want COVID, to hide behind COVID and say, well, our students didn't do well because of COVID.
Yes.
I think we need to do better for them.
Yeah, we definitely do. And I appreciate again that you made a space in this conversation to talk about this issue. And hopefully, as you said, hopefully the people that are listening can either maybe reflect on this, reflect on the power that we have when we say stuff like that to others. Because you're saying that a specific group of people are not good at or are not as good at, and that has power. Like, words really do have a lot of power. So just being careful with what we say. And Yerania, we're kind of halfway in our interview, but I do want to talk about your experience in the Air Force, and how do you think that experience, especially talking as an immigrant and as a Latina, helped you or shaped you in any way?
Oh man, the joining the Air Force was, I was a 19-year-old. If you're doing the math, I tell people all the time, my children are obviously the greatest blessing, but a very equal blessing to me was joining the United States Air Force and serving for 5 years. The I can't speak for any other branches, but I can speak for the Air Force for sure. They have such a safety net for success. And I think that America as a whole needs that for our young adults. I'll go right into it first. But so, you graduate high school and then you're sort of left alone. Like, you have to figure it out. Either you go to college or you don't, and you sort of just disappear. You have to find your own connections. So the Air Force is so amazing because, you go into your basic training, and then you go into a technical school to specialize in a job, and then you promote. But within the promotion, you have within that trajectory, you have mentors, you have co-workers, you have teams of people that are really always looking out to make sure for your best interest. I mean, you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
But for me, the confidence that I gained, I wasn't a very academically inclined student at that point. I desperately wanted to, but I didn't have the right GPA to get into a 4-year university. And I'm not a good test taker even now. But I have the grit, las ganas. I had it. And I
Yes.
really wanted to do it. And my only option was to stay at the local community college and,
Mm.
continue to help my parents. But I felt like me estaba sofocando. I was suffocating. I
Yes.
wanted to get wings and go. So I joined the Air Force. And as soon as
Let
I go
me
to basic training.
let me just
Sure.
stop you right there before. I just want to ask you, who told you about it? Like, was this like an option for you years before? I just don't know how that idea kind of, yeah, came to you, and it sounded like a thing that you wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah,
very specific.
it was really specific. So so to be honest with you, it was a commercial.
Okay.
The recruiting commercials were like, be greater than than yourself, a
Yeah.
greater mission. So I was feeling sufocada,
Yes.
I was trapped. I we were super poor. We couldn't even sometimes we couldn't make the rent payment because just the economy was off. Anyway, so I was working as a state employee in Nevada as a clerical person and admin every day, and I was working at JC Penney's, and I was trying to do this and just be the good daughter. And I was watching TV one day, this commercial came on, and I just started thinking about it. I was like, oh my gosh, that could be me. And I did have a cousin that had joined, but it was just like around that time. So we didn't know, as a family, we didn't know much about it. And he was a male. It was very different. Like it was a given, like it's okay for him to go. And I remember one day my dad drove me to work because we only had one car and we were sharing cars. And I said, Dad, like I've been like this commercial like really got to my heart. Like, it's something bigger than me. I want to do it. And he was so sad when I told him.
Mm.
He was like, but you're my daughter, you're a girl. Yeah, and he's always really raised us to be powerful females, all of us and all his granddaughters. He always tells us, no quiero que dependas de nadie, not even a
Uh-huh.
man. Like he's that kind of man. So, but he's still, I'm still his daughter. And he said to me, pues si te vas, the biggest rock of our foundation is going to shatter us. Like you're a big rock holding our fort together,
That's
basically,
so,
right?
wow.
And we cried, and I just told him like, no, like I'm leaving, but I think it's because it's going to be better for our
Hmm.
family. Just think about what we can do with this
Hmm.
opportunity. And that's what did it. But the very, very honest answer is those recruiting commercials work.
I kind of want to watch one of those commercials.
I'm going to send you one because now they're even better. I mean, back then,
They
but
really
I
do
listened to
work. Wow, I
they
love
do.
that you told us that, because it's always so interesting to really explore what made a person make such a huge decision, that it's really also interesting to see how that's what the commercial showed you, and that's kind of what happened. Like, you really found a great community and a great opportunity there.
Yeah, they is I think that's who I am. I always want to be part of a greater purpose.
Mm.
Like I want to have a reason for doing what I do. And you can see my trajectory professionally. The moment that I don't see the mission is, helping some positive cause, then I tend to shy away from it and,
Mm.
and want to do something else. And I think being a part of the military, I mean, clearly that's a huge mission. And the Air Force, is known to be a support branch. So while I may be very courageous and, brave, not as brave as a Marine or as a soldier in the Army or a Coast Guard or a Navy person.
Wow.
I definitely wanted to be in the background a little bit. I wanted
No,
to be
you
part of the
weren't.
movement, but,
What was
but a little
something
bit more
that
of a support.
what was something that you did in the Air Force that you felt like it was really out of your comfort zone or really scary while you were there?
Um, Well, I think moving across country. So basic training was hard, but it's such a beautiful feeling because
Mm.
you're equal to everyone and everybody's the same. We're all, it was diverse, all kinds of different cultures, but everyone wants you to succeed.
Mm.
No one wants you to fail. So that was really beautiful. And I couldn't do sit-ups because I have a back issue, but anyway, but I did it because the girls in my squadron really helped me out.
Mm.
So that was really cool. But I think the scariest part for me was moving across country.
Mm.
So not within the Air Force, not the job. I moved. My base was Montgomery, Alabama. So Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. And I was, yeah, and I was in technical school in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Mm.
It's Keesler Air Force Base, and you're safe because you're in school and it's kind of like a college feel. It's not a big deal, but then you're going to your first base alone.
Wow.
So for me, they put me on a bus. They put me on a bus from Biloxi to Montgomery. It's only probably about 4 hours, 3 hours on a bus, maybe four. And going through the South,
Mm.
and you learn about the South and you learn about their history. So it's a bit scary, especially
Mm.
as a minority, not knowing that, and you're alone. I was a 19-year-old female on this bus, and I remember stopping some little town, and all I wanted to do was call my dad and tell him, and I could not talk because I was crying. I was so scared, and I can tell you, and my family, we love the South, and we go back every year, and we
Really?
drive through the back countries of the South because I want my kids to see this. I don't want them to be scared of it like I was. And I
Mm.
remember just I couldn't talk. My dad knew it was me, and we're talking, and he says, "Cuando te dan limones, what are you gonna do?" And that has stuck with me forever. As limonada, like make your lemonade out of your lemons. And
I
I
love your dad.
Oh, my dad's amazing. I mean, both of my parents are
I,
amazing. My dad just really, he's a very educated, knowledgeable man in many ways, and he has really, I mean, he provides so much guidance. Both do,
I
but
can
at the
tell.
end of the day, I mean, in different ways. So
I know.
that was, I have to say, the culture change that had to be the scariest part, because everything else in the military, you're so supported
Mm.
that there isn't anything that you do that you fear. At least I didn't.
Right.
It was just that change. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is a huge change. And in a way, you were kind of like experiencing some sort of like um, immigration in a way too, just going away by yourself to a different land, right? I think you were ready to
Yes.
take on that risk after all the things you went through and that you face. So
That definitely built me for it. Yes.
yeah, right. How amazing. And Yerania, I mean, it's just been wonderful to hear your journey and the things that you have been able to explore and experience. And I really wanted to get to this point where we talk about what are you currently doing, because we kind of learned that, you're changing in terms of who you are and you're embracing even more now who you are, but it sounds like you're also helping others in that journey. So I would love for you to share what you're currently working on and about your account as well, because I think that's just so wonderful.
Yes. So I'll be really brief. But for most of my professional career, I have been an auditor. I started as an auditor of financial institutions, so making
Okay.
sure banks and credit unions are safe and sound. And that was a good trajectory of my professional career. And then I migrated to become a legislative auditor for the state of Nevada. So in that, I was auditing all kinds of industries and programs across the state. And it was sort of like we had a good mission, but I felt like I had so much to offer, and
Mm.
I wanted something different. And the reason why I felt that, I wasn't using my Spanish in any way. It was great pay, great security, but I just felt like I was dormant in a way,
Mm.
professionally and personally. And I kind of wanted to be um, well-rounded as a person in all kinds of aspects. So I started researching things, and then my last audit was the inspection of elevators in the state of Nevada. And we found the elevators were not being inspected as they needed to be. And part of
Wow.
the reason was, when we drilled down to the purpose, or the reason behind that, was because there was a shortage of inspectors and elevator mechanics. And when we started doing more research, because we all have masters of business administration, so we love to dig. We're all digging, and it came down that the pay for some of those individuals was over $100,000, and that sort of got me thinking, like, why isn't there enough? But people can't find jobs, and like there's this high college debt issue. I was I was really interested in this whole
Right.
workforce development piece. So I started networking, and I ended up applying for this job at the Carson City School District, which I talked to you about, because my goal was really to connect more young adults to
Mm.
opportunities like this one of a elevator inspector. Without a 4-year college degree, you can achieve this high salary.
Right.
That's really where I wanted to go professionally. And it didn't work out for
Mm.
many reasons, as we've talked about. And I was encouraged by my husband to take a little break, just because I had gone through a couple of issues within that.
Mm.
So I actually resigned October 19th. Was my last day of 2019. So it's interesting that today is the day. I didn't
Wait,
even
that's kind of crazy.
I didn't even think about it, honestly, because I don't want to focus on the negative anymore.
I
You know what I
know.
mean? And
Yeah.
I really, really broke my heart,
Mm.
and it shattered me professionally, because I left such a secure job at the legislature, and then I didn't have anything.
Mm.
My family had never functioned under one salary. I had always been a professional along with my husband.
Right.
So we had to go from from two
Two.
salaries to one,
Yeah.
like our budget, the whole thing. It was really scary. So anyway, but I was sad and all this stuff. And a couple of the students I had met through the school, because I was working really fast and making, I thought, a big difference, and
Yeah.
moved a lot of students to different connections. And a couple of them that had were seniors that year kept knocking on my door,
Mm.
literally at my house, like, Yeri, we need you, like, guide us here, guide us there, and we were working together.
Wow.
And I told one of them, that I really we became friends, and
Mm.
I confessed with her, and she said, "Why don't you do your own thing? Like, we need you." Her name is Bianca, so I hope she listens to this and she
Yes.
knows this.
Hi,
And she
Bianca.
said, she said, like, we need people to associate with. We want you to do this. So long story short, thanks to Bianca, I started skillsconnection.org, which I'm really it's just a year that I've been in this, and really trying to find the focus. But my mission is to connect young adults, any young adult, it doesn't matter for me, with opportunities that do not necessarily look like a 4-year degree. Although, if the individual is that's in their trajectory, then definitely.
Right.
I started a little academy, and I have a couple students, and one of them is first generation college student, and he is not Latino, he's not a minority. But his parents had never pursued college, so his parents didn't know how to navigate the process
Yeah.
necessarily, and he's been admitted to a private school where he's going to pursue his sport. So those are the things that I want to do. I understand that high school counselors do that,
Mm.
but they don't have enough
The
capacity.
demand. Yes, they don't.
Yeah, so I started this little group on Facebook, because my mission is also to connect parents with, especially Spanish-speaking parents, as to how to navigate the school systems.
Mm.
So I call it Skills Connection, or Conexión de Habilidades. And I've been all over the place, because frankly, financially, I needed to have some sort of income. So I also develop some courses and teach for a local community college, and make ends meet, for my family, while I build this whole thing with Skills Connection.
Yeah, and skill connections is are you focusing on any state in the United States, or is really focused on where you're at the moment?
No, my goal is to help out anybody that needs to. I created just recently a listing by industry that does not require a 4-year degree. That listing has salaries associated with it, and the type of certificate associated with that, because I think the need is there. As a matter of fact, today I was just in a meeting for another venture that I'm doing, and they were talking about the gap in the healthcare field. That we don't have enough minorities serving in that capacity,
Yeah.
and they were showing the statistics. So my goal is to connect whoever, and across the United States, with those opportunities.
That is amazing. And where can you repeat the name so can people find you? You said Facebook and also Instagram, right?
Yes. I'm a little sleepy on Twitter. Like my teenage daughter said, either you're in Twitter or you're not. So I guess I'm not.
I'm not either.
So I actually also connected with Tono Latino, and she was I learned a lot from her. She said we have to do more video
Mm,
because our Latinos are really watching more videos, so that's
yes.
a good thing to do. So I'm going to start a YouTube channel eventually.
Yes.
But yeah, so skillsconnection.org, that's the website. So
Okay.
it's not .com, it's .org. And then I'm on Facebook, a Facebook community, Skills Connection, and then backslash Conexión de Habilidades. And on Instagram, which I probably need to change, but is YMD2411
Okay.
skillsconnection.org. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. That
So
is
I'm all over the place.
so if
Need
people,
to
yeah, just type
focus.
in skill connections, I mean, I'm sure they will find you. And I don't want to leave without talking about, I know you mentioned it at the beginning, the classes that you're giving at the community college for citizenship, because I think it's just really interesting. First, I didn't know that was an option to take those classes in a community college. And second, I feel like I just want us to share how that's has been for you, because you came to this country when you were 12 years old, and you were kind of like obviously learning from the culture and learning the history. How is it now for you to help other immigrants to become citizens?
It's amazing, amazing. I have so due to COVID, I'm teaching online. We have a physical class, and I'm also teaching online because of online. I can reach students anywhere in the United States. By the way, so if anybody's interested, they can join this community college.
Great.
So in this class, I have an individual from Iran, I have an individual from Argentina, one from Chile, one from Colombia, and a Mexicana. And I actually just gained two more students that will start tomorrow. I don't know where they're from. So to me, to have that blend of cultures, and I became a citizen in 2008 after I had served in the United States Air Force. So I have an appreciation for
I,
that.
I didn't know that you could serve in the military without having the citizenship. That's
You could
just,
be a permanent resident for your first enlistment or your first contract, and then as an officer and to go to an academy, you have to be a citizen. But
okay.
enlisted, you can join as a permanent resident,
Oh my God, thank you
and
for
it
giving us
doesn't
all this
guarantee you.
information. Sorry for
Yeah,
interrupting, but
and
I'm
it
like, I don't want to miss this.
no, no, and it doesn't guarantee you citizenship for sure. It's not like a direct path. I wish it was, but it isn't. You then become, a normal citizen, and you have to go through the normal process. So it
Oh,
doesn't, so I don't want people to get the idea of like, oh, she did it for that reason. No, not at
no.
all. I did it because that commercial spoke to me. Yeah. So it was so interesting. This was, I had been helping them develop a workforce development course at this community college. And the director said, "Hey, I need a citizenship person too. Do you want to do this?" And I know you would be good because you became a citizen. So she gave me this opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I've been helping, but this is my first actual class, and I wanted to break the ice and get to know all the students. And what was so I was so blessed and so I'm just so humbled to be a part of this. When they all share their story at the end of the night, the common theme was music and dancing. That they all love to dance and they all love music. One of them has a band, and they started
Oh
talking
my
about it.
God.
And even the student from Iran, and I thought, oh my gosh, like we have so much in common. Like why do we not like celebrate that some more?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm on cloud 9 to be a part of this citizenship course. A lot of them are learning English as well. They're not confident in
That's
speaking
so
English,
hard.
and they're reading to me. It's beautiful. I love it. I love
Wow.
it.
Well, and just to say goodbye, which I don't want to because it's been really great to talk to you. Is there like any tip that you can give anyone that's gonna take the test? I will take it one day. If, I don't know when, but hopefully one day. Any tip, any recommendation, any, I don't know, a question that's always there?
Well, there's 100 questions to the test.
Okay.
And what I do tell my students all the time, and there's a lot of free resources, by the way. In the class at Truckee Meadows Community College is free. But what I do tell people all the time, because you want to memorize everything, right? Because you don't know what questions they're going to ask you out of the 100.
Yeah.
And a lot of the students really overcomplicate it because they're afraid. You know, they want to know it all, and they may confuse the Declaration of Independence versus the Constitution or something to that extent. And I always tell them, when you're interviewing, talk to them about the purpose of it. Like, what did the Declaration of Independence do? Don't try to memorize the black and white answer if you're having trouble with it. Just know, so then you can talk about it. Well, the Declaration of Independence gave us independence from England. You know, like, just saying,
yes,
just, a broad statement, then they'll know that you know what
that
you're talking about.
Yes. Wow,
Yeah,
that is such an amazing recommendation. And is this test just like selection, like multiple selections, or you're talking to someone? It's like an interview?
It's an interview.
It's an interview.
And they're going to gauge how you, so for me, when I promote this course, I always tell the radio stations, it's about confianza. Like, we want you to be confident. We want you to walk into the interview and feel like believe in yourself, because you know this stuff, right? So they will, you'll be interviewed, and they'll greet you in English, hi, how are you? And they'll gauge your English skills. There'll be a written test and a reading test. So you can read something and then write about it.
Okay.
So we practice a lot of that. A lot of writing in our class and a lot of reading. And it's just about confidence, knowing the material, knowing the purpose behind the document, even if you don't know exactly, word for word,
right?
Just know the reason behind it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I don't know if I'm more nervous now that I know it's about confidence.
Well, you just call me and we get you squared away.
Yes. No, for real. I'm glad that we connected, because I'm probably going to be asking you more things about this outside of the interview. So
there's so many resources. There's a free app, so you can put it on your phone. I mean, and people there, you'll find resources across the board. What makes us different with this community college is that you're able to speak. If you're shy and you're not confident, then you're in a safe place where you can practice.
Yeah.
And there was a gentleman that said, I don't know how to pronounce naturalization. Like, I have a really hard time with it. And I said, well, say it. And he said it, and I said, you sound fine. Like, what are you talking about? Well, when I tell my wife or I tell my kids, they kind of laugh at me. That's the problem, right? Because then you feel like you're not doing it right. Well,
yes.
Who cares,
I don't know how many times I have been like, what did I say? Right? Like, to people, and I'm just speaking English, and people will be like, and then they're like, no, you said it right. It's just the accent or whatever. But just forget it. Don't listen to those things. You're right. Like, you're saying it and people can understand you. That's what matters.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, Yerania, Yeri, I was so happy to have you here. Really, this was such an amazing time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much, Pedro. You're doing amazing work. I'm so excited that our paths have crossed. Your work we need it.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad that we were able to connect. Seriously, every interview I make, I'm like, I'm happy that I know a little bit more about someone else's journey. Thank you.
Thank you.